guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is an adventure western from the United States, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, and this film is called The Revenant. So The Revenant is set in the 1820s in the American wilderness. You've got a band of 40 fur trappers who are responsible for killing animals and selling their fur off to make a living. And so in this particular expedition, you've got Hugh Glass and Fitzgerald. These are two main characters. Hugh Glass has an adopted son who is a Native American Indian, and Fitzgerald really doesn't like Native American Indians, so there's a lot of tension between the three of them. So they're constantly bickering, but ultimately they've got to work together in order to make the money that they want to get. So one day at their camp, they are attacked by Pawnee Indians. Now 30 of the 40 fur trappers are killed in a very brutal way, and the remaining fur trappers are on the run. So they've got to stay one step ahead of their pursuers, and they're very paranoid about what's going on. So one day Hugh Glass is attacked viciously by a bear and he's left for dead. Basically he is gravely wounded, and a lot of people think that he's not going to survive much longer. So the leader of these survivors says that he doesn't want to leave Hugh Glass alone to die, so he just wants to nominate 3 people to give him comfort in his last hours. So these 3 people are Hugh Glass's son, another young guy, and Fitzgerald. Now Fitzgerald wants Hugh Glass to die sooner because he's paranoid that the Indians are going to come and get him, and so one thing leads to another. There's a confrontation between Fitzgerald and Hugh Glass's son. He kills the son, much to Hugh Glass's anger, and so he decides that he's going to leave Hugh Glass to die because he is not going to die for him, basically. So they leave Hugh Glass alone, but little do they know, Hugh Glass is not going to die there. He's going to come back, he's going to work up the energy, and he's going to track down Fitzgerald and get the redemption and the revenge that he so sorely wants. So whether or not he can achieve that, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Revenant. This was an absolutely brilliant film, and this is one of the rare occasions where the hype really matches the reality. Now a lot of these films, a lot of people I feel jump on the bandwagon of praising a movie, and I think movies get praised so much that you build an unrealistic sort of expectation, and because those expectations really aren't met, you can kind of judge a film as being bad, but in reality it just doesn't meet the expectation that everybody gives it. So case in point, Mad Max, not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly not the masterpiece a lot of people will say it is. So initially when I saw the film, because everyone was giving this praise to no end, I was disappointed by what I got, but in reality it wasn't a bad film, it was just victim of over sort of hype. So I was worried that The Revenant would be the same, but thankfully I thought that hype matches what the movie deserves. I think this is a fantastic story. It's a fantastic storytelling in its visuals. A lot of this film doesn't have dialogue, it's what you actually see that tells the story. And I think the masterful camera angles, the brutality and the sudden impact of the violence, and basically the director allowing you to connect to the situation, allowing you to connect to Hugh Glass's predicament. And I think this is a very strangely uplifting film because Hugh Glass is going through so much torment, so many dilemmas, so many problems. He's facing the harsh elements of the weather, the snowy sort of atmosphere. He had his son killed, he had been viciously mauled by a bear, but that's not stopping him. So you can relate to this character, especially if you've been through problems yourself. Now personally I've had cancer, I've got depression and extreme anxiety, and I could really connect to this character because he never gives up. And if you never give up, you go through the bad things, there's always going to be good things up for you. And so although I haven't been in the predicament that Hugh Glass is in this film, I could still connect to him because I've been going through a lot of hardships, and it's basically a movie, an inspiring movie about never giving up, about no matter what's thrown at you, you can always make it and you can always push forward. So I really like that element of the film, and although the actual story is very basic and very generic, basically it's a movie about revenge, it's a movie about redemption and survival, because it has such a simplistic storyline, it's allowing the director to really do something very ambitious in the visuals. Now, I think it would have been too much for Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu if it was a very ambitious visual film and a very ambitious storyline. It either had to be a very ambitious storyline or and just a simple sort of visual, or very ambitious visuals and a simple storyline. And unfortunately, a lot of directors don't know their limitations. And I think Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, the reason why this film is so good is because he is not trying too much. He's not trying to be pretentious. A lot of people might think this is pretentious, but I think the fact that it's a very simple storyline allows him room to really hit you on a visual basis. And visually, you will not see a better film than The Revenant. I thought the camera angles really hit you with a strong sense of realism. There were sudden scenes of violence that really took me off guard, and because the violence comes out of nowhere, you've got no sense of anticipation. You don't know when the violence is going to come. So because of that, although nothing might nothing particularly interesting might be happening in a certain scene, because he's really set the mood for the film very early on, there's an attack that happens out of nowhere, and because that happens out of nowhere, it really sets the standard for expecting the unexpected. So although something might not be particularly interesting happening, you're always thinking something interesting could happen at any second. So you're always glued to the screen, and I thought it was a very smart way that Alejandro González Iñárritu captures the audience, and he doesn't let you take a breath. And throughout the whole duration of the film, I kept expecting something to come out of nothing, and sometimes it does happen. And I just think it was down to the fact that he pays a lot of respect to the viewer, and he doesn't cue what's going to happen by either the visuals or the noises or the soundtrack. A lot of horror films especially will play scary music when something bad is about to happen. It's kind of dumbing it down. But this movie, it'll come out of nowhere and it just hits you very hard. And I love the level of uncertainty, and it creates a lot of suspense. And so, yeah, I mean, visually this is a masterpiece. I thought the bear scene, everybody talks about the bear scene, that was one of the most vicious scenes that I have seen. The best animal attack scene that I've seen in any movie. I just thought it was so realistic, it was so raw, it wasn't hiding anything, and it just really set the standard for this character of Hugh Glass. And so all that contributed to make just one of once in a lifetime experience with the visuals. The atmosphere of the elements, the cold sort of nature the film had. This was shot in real light, so it didn't have any enhancements, so that once again gives you a opportunity to absorb yourself into the situation, absorb yourself into this world. So when Hugh Glass is feeling cold, you actually feel cold. When he's going through his injuries, you actually feel it as well. And that wouldn't be possible without the expert performance from Leonardo DiCaprio as Hugh Glass. I think he deserves to win the Best Actor Oscar, because he just gives Hugh Glass such a relatable sort of quality that you really want to see him pull through. Not particularly because he's a great person, but because he's had so much thrown at him, but he is not giving up. And so that's that inspirational quality that he has that a lot of other people either have or they want to have. And it gives you an insight into a guy who is not going to stop at anything. And because that's an inspirational quality, and it's a very admirable quality, you want to see Hugh Glass get from point A to point B without too much problem. But it's one problem after another, and I thought Leonardo DiCaprio's performance was brilliant. He doesn't talk a lot in the film, so it's down to his body language, and I thought the body language really stood for itself. And it was also the camera work that helps kind of contribute more to the characters as well. And then you've got Tom Hardy. Now, I know a lot of people want Sylvester Stallone to win the Oscar for the Best Supporting Actor, but I think Tom Hardy deserves it. I haven't seen Creed yet, so I can't really compare the two, but Tom Hardy gives an absolutely brilliant performance as Fitzgerald. This is a bad guy, but he's not a stereotypical bad guy. He's a bad guy because of the circumstances. He's scared of these Indians, so he's doing things that any other person might do. Obviously you can't really say to yourself, he's a bad guy, I would never act like that. If you were put into that situation, what would you do? Would you care for someone else? Would you put your life on the line for someone else? Or would you see it as every man for himself, and he's going to save his own skin instead of put his life on the line for anybody else? So it gives you a very different kind of villain, and you sense that this Fitzgerald character is both scared and he's a little bit nutty as well. And I thought Tom Hardy, he was absolutely brilliant. And the main performers, Hugh Glass and Fitzgerald, it's a very simplistic story, but the level of acting, the level of camera work, it just gives this simple story a lot of complexity. And that's the reason why I just thought this was a movie that was very self-aware and knew exactly what it wanted to do. So it goes for 20 minutes short of 3 hours. I thought there were some scenes here and there that could have been edited just a little bit, and that does prevent it from being an absolute flawless film. But overall, if you like westerns, if you like adventure films, survival movies, this was absolutely fantastic. It does match the hype. I just thought it was a very inspiring film, at the same time absolutely beautiful and ugly. There's a lot of conflicting emotions. You don't know how this is going to pan out, and as I said, that level of unexpected quality is really what makes it interesting, and it allows the fluency of the film to really continue. So it doesn't outstay its welcome, thankfully, and it really doesn't become a victim of being overhyped. So this movie is as good as a lot of people will make it out to be, and as a result of that, I'm going to give The Revenant 4.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.